All right, welcome to the PeterPaul Podcast. I'm Peter.
I'm Paul.
And actually, it's called Objects in the Mirror. It's not
Yes.
the PeterPaul Podcast.
Yes.
We're not that vain.
This is our first episode, and today we're going to talk about conservatism and how it has sort of swept North America, whether it's locally, provincially, in Canada. There's a guy getting inaugurated in a few days.
Worldwide, actually.
Worldwide, yep,
Yeah.
for sure. Turkey, Venezuela, just about everywhere.
Brazil.
It's insane. Yeah, Brazil for sure. So for the last couple of years, few years, we've had an NDP government in BC. Locally in Chilliwack, we've had new Democrat representatives. We've got the Trudeau Liberals in Ottawa. We've got the Biden government in Washington. And, you know, even at our little old Chilliwack School Board, we've got our fraught Chilliwack School Board, we've got the kind of lefties have taken over there. So it's been an interesting period of time. But conservatism is clearly here. We've already had some of it coming in the fall. We're going to have this inauguration in January, and there's a good chance it's coming in October to Canada.
Very good chance. And I don't think it's, I wouldn't call it conservatism. I would call it a reaction to the status quo. That's how I've sort of seen it from my perspective is people are just not happy with the status quo. And I wouldn't call even the Trudeau Liberals progressive per se.
No.
There were things that Harper brought in that the Liberals just left as is. So that's not very progressive.
Yes,
So.
We've talked about that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And there is that time-honored system of where after about 10 years, at least in Canada, every 4 years in the US, or 8 years for sure they do it, but every 10 years or so in Canada, we switch from Liberals to Conservatives. And it's just, you just get tired of the government in power. We've had global pandemics. We've had inflation. Everyone wants to blame the country they're in. And so it's not surprising that suddenly a lot of countries in the world are switching from where they were to somewhere else. And in Canada, that's going to be conservative, and it's probably going to be Pierre Poilievre, and we've got Donald Trump coming. So, you know.
It was younger voters that put him in, though, and it's going to be younger voters that bring Poilievre in as well. They're the ones that are feeling like there's no hope. They're the ones who, under the Liberals and the Democrats in the U.S., have seen their ability to purchase their first home disappear.
Yeah.
It's been gone for a long time in Vancouver for a lot of people, and that's why you see people moving out to the valley.
Toronto's just about.
Exactly. But I think that's what you're seeing happen here. These kids didn't grow up with, they don't remember Harper necessarily, and Harper arguably wasn't as bad as what Poilievre could be. They also don't remember Obama in 2008.
Yeah.
So they're just growing up and going, oh, I'm about to go into the work world and I can't afford a house. I can't afford a car. I can't afford this. I can't afford to live. Sure. I can't afford to buy healthy food.
Sure, you had 8 years of people who are up to whatever the ages of 18 to 26 who, didn't see any of those things you're talking about. Now they're voting age, and they're coming together, and they're more pissed off. And a lot of times, those are the apathetic people, the apathetic voters. They were not involved. There was all this effort to push the young people to the polls. Often conservatives didn't want that because they tended to be lefties. I remember hearing somebody once wanted to raise the voting age to 21, and then some people on the left wanted to lower it. And now you're right. The young people are shifting to the right for whatever reason that is. It's complicated, obviously. We're not going to solve it here, me and you, or are we?
Well, I think I could solve it, but not me by myself. But I just mean, like, I sit back and I look at these things, and I said this over a year ago to a very prominent left-leaning spouse of a trustee in town that we need to be ready for this because this is what's happening. And we needed to be pushing back when Biden first got elected. Trump didn't go away. Trump already did a term. Biden came in and it was status quo.
Yeah.
And inflation went up and things became less affordable and he kept forgetting things and he kept making, everybody's going, why is this old guy in charge of everything. Likewise with Trudeau, you had people sitting there going, why is this guy stammering all the time? And why is he came off as egotistical to people and arrogant? And his best before date, in my opinion, was probably 4 years ago. But we're seeing a similar pattern here in Canada that we're seeing in the U.S. I really fear for the next 4 years under Trump. Like I am
it could be
very nervous.
It could be very interesting for sure. I never stammer, by the way. So to bring it back to the provincial thing, the provincial election in October, that was the first date on this list of dates that I was considering. And that was when we had the provincial election. And obviously for all my literally 30 years that I've been in British Columbia, it's been a flip-flop between the New Democrats and the BC Liberals, and sometimes long chunks of time. Of course, the 90s, when I arrived in 94, it was the NDP. 2001, the BC Liberals, Gordon Campbell then took over. Anyway, it's been back and forth. This last election was pretty unique in that we had the dissolution of the BC Liberals. They turned into a soccer football club name, and they got forgotten. And then John Rustad, by some zombie miracle, recreated the BC Conservative Party, and lo and behold, they win 44 seats out of 93 seats in the Victoria Legislature, which is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Everybody says that. Everybody knows. Every pundit is baffled by that.
They captured lightning in a bottle.
Sure.
That's what they got.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll last. You're always seeing cracks in that party. But, But one thing related to that is that you ever notice that when a party is past its best before date, like I mentioned about Trudeau, they always want to replace the leader with a woman. They know that their party is going down.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in the past. We saw it with Brian Mulroney back when he was super unpopular.
Yeah.
As unpopular as Trudeau is, Mulroney was Kim at least Campbell that. He put Kim Campbell in there. And in my opinion, she was a great politician. She was a smart woman, a good leader, but she got put in there and her career got destroyed. Yeah. Van der Zalm put Rita Johnson in.
She's got a good job now, though.
She does, but it's not leader of the country. No. And that her being in that position sullied her reputation. Yeah. And then we had Rita Johnson go in after Van der Zalm, and that killed her career. And then Christy Clark was going to be running possibly to be the Liberal leader. And I actually was cheering for her because I knew that it was going to kill her career. And I don't like her, but she's decided not to run. So.
Well, she made the mistake of lying on camera in an interview where she suggested she was never a member of the Federal Conservatives, and the brilliant interviewer who had done her research, and I forget who was on the CBC, pointed out, yeah, you did.
She also lied when she ran that red light with her son in the car. I remember back in the day, somebody's caught her and oh no, I never did that. And then they pulled the proof out. Right, yeah, so she has a history of saying those kind of things. I'm kind of glad that she's not running. I don't think she's the right fit for that party. I was impressed with Mark Carney when he went on that interview with Jon Stewart. Yeah. I didn't know a heck of a lot about him, other than he's a finance guy, Bank of Canada governor, Bank of England governor. But man, did he ever do a great job to basically define who he is as an outsider. He's not an Ignatieff. Remember when Ignatieff came in after the Liberals were down the last time after Paul Martin? Everybody said he's not back here for you or whatever. Yes. Carney's already defined himself quite well by going on the Jon Stewart show, and it actually kind of blew me out of the water in a good way. Yeah. Not that I'll necessarily support them, but I thought, oh wow, this is a smart move. Yeah. A very smart.
So after the provincial election in BC, then obviously very soon after the news cycle, well, locally, I mean worldwide the news cycle was already this, but locally even the news cycle went to the U.S. election where, Trump won in that show.
Handily.
He's taken over that's the sort of the small C conservative Republic Party with this, what I call a dangerous form of populism, bringing sort of, anachronistic, inexperienced people to the table, like John Kennedy Jr. and Elon Musk in cabinet. Like it's just people. You look back at 2016, and people were shocked. Oh my gosh, he could have won. It looks like a conservative picnic compared to what's coming up in a few days here with these nominees, with these people that are being pointed to cabinet in the Trump government.
Yeah, like Hegseth in defense and with his history. And then you got Bondi.
Women shouldn't be in the army. Sort of.
Yeah, I think Bondi, is that her name? Bondi or something? I watched her questioning the other day, and they're shutting down the questioning of these individuals because they know they have so many skeletons in their closet, but they're wholly unqualified to be in those positions. Everybody knows it. But Trump is a disturber, and that's what got him in the office. Is people were like, "I'm tired of the status quo," and he captured those votes.
And what I've said all along is that status quo, that Trump style, that MAGA style, drain the swamp thing is this element of conservatism, and we've talked about this one-on-one a little bit. This notion of where conservatism is, whether you want to call it committing suicide or dying or whatever it is. And it's turning into something else. It's turning into something that it was not. Conservatism is about conserving the systems, conserving our systems, our
small government,
our bodies, small government, making it better, lowering taxes. Whereas liberalism is more about socialism and improving, getting government to pay for services, increasing them. This form of populism that did not start with Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination.
Started with Reagan.
Yeah, and this populism is tear down the system, and PeterPaul, Canada's broken. Donald Trump drain the swamp. This is happening in Turkey with Erdogan. It's happening in Netanyahu in Israel, as you said, in Brazil,
Germany.
Yes, and it's a dangerous move because it is actually anti-democratic. It actually has a distrust for elections. It shows a distrust for elections. It shows a distrust for all of our popular checks and balances that we have in democracy, whether it is academia or the healthcare system or the justice system or the media, and we're moving that way slowly. We don't need to be hyperbolic, or maybe we could. But we don't. It's not an apocalypse on the horizon here, but there's a lot of dangerous things going on.
What Reagan did was he made a deal with the evangelicals that bring them into the political realm, and the Falwells and the Swaggarts and people like that, and once they entered into the politics, and now you don't have that separation of church and state. Yeah. And now you've got this almost perversion, in my opinion, of Christianity, because Christianity, in my view, is what Jesus stood for. And if you look at those values, they actually align more with communism than they do with Trump, right? From what I see.
Oh yeah.
And I've read the Bible. Values.
Yeah. Oh yeah?
Yeah.
It's a good book.
I grew up in the church, man. And to me, it always appealed to me, the teachings of Jesus, because they were very humble, and they were about making things about other people and not about yourself, right? And he had no time for bankers. And remember, he flipped the tables of the bankers and the politicians and stuff.
He also did not want a church in his name. So
exactly. And now we're seeing almost the perversion of that with, I don't know so much in Canada, but definitely in the U.S., where it's almost like they equate Trump with oh, that's Jesus's guy. Yeah. And it clearly isn't.
Which is an interesting metaphor or parallel or what have you with the notion of populism. The notion of populism is the idea of we are a party or a person of the people, and we speak for the people, and all those institutions that you thought you believed in democracy, whether it's the electoral system, whether it's academia, whether it's the media, it's distrust in those, and if you go against this idea, this Trumpism, and I think PeterPaul is sort of watching the playbook very carefully. He might not be doing it. If you're against this, you're against the people, because we stand for the people, and this is how Again, one of my favorite thinkers right now is Yuval Noah Harari, who's written a few books. His most recent is Nexus, Sapiens and Homo Deus. But in Nexus, it's all about the information age. He's very concerned about AI. But he also talks about populism and this sort of death of conservatism and turning it into populism. And strongmen love populism because it can allow them to move to a dictatorship while looking like you're being democratic.
Oligarchy. Yeah, like we're seeing Elon Musk basically bragging about his influence over Trump, and he's not even elected, and he's not even an American, I don't think. Is he an American citizen? I'm not sure. But anyway, him and now Zuckerberg is sucking up to the orange Cheeto guy.
Yeah,
like it's scary. We're seeing an oligarchy happen in front of our eyes. That's not democracy. So
no, and I always feel like Canada, no matter how conservative the boys get there or in Ottawa, we're never quite there. Pierre Poilievre pushes the limits.
He had a bad week, though. I think he had a really bad week this week. Apparently he was sick, but he held a press conference and he was really awkward and goofy looking. The most awkward and goofy I've seen him. He was not confident. He was invoking the name of John A. Macdonald, who wrote the infamous white paper to help exterminate Indigenous people. And he's invoking that name, and he just came off as really, really amateurish. But I think it was the same day that Carney was on that interview came out with Jon Stewart, and I think he was off his game. I think Carney shook him a bit with his interview. You got to watch the interview if you haven't watched it. It's about 20 minutes long. It's actually very, very well done.
Yeah.
I think it comes off better in audio than it does in video. But when I heard it on CBC the next morning, I was like, oh wow, this is good.
Well, he's the thing about Pierre Poilievre is he's an excellent opposition MP. He always was under the previous leader. He's an excellent opposition party leader. He's just never. It's hard to fathom him as a leader because he's a really good bully, and our nature of our democratic system is that oppositional, and you're supposed to do that, and he's very good at that. It's a pretty big transition for a guy like him to suddenly switch into leader mode, and he's not doing it. He's not answering questions. He's going on Jordan Peterson, doing interviews with Jordan Peterson, who's
he's not bringing forward any sort of good ideas that people can go, hey, I like that,
something to get behind, something to hope
it's all
for.
Complaints.
Yeah, it has been in the past.
But you know who's come off really well this week, by the way, who is considered right wing? Doug Ford.
Oh yeah,
I think Doug Ford's he's really done a good job, like changing his reputation,
I saw that too. Yeah.
Putting the country first.
Yeah,
and you got that premier in Alberta.
He's got Danielle and Danielle and Pierre. Doug Ford is saying, "Come on, guys, we need to be a united front here." He said exactly that. Yeah,
I was actually quite impressed with him this week, at least.
He doesn't do crack either, which is good.
Yeah, apparently.
Unlike his brother.
Yeah,
that didn't go well.
Yeah.
I'm from Toronto, so I'm allowed to
you're
about Rob Ford.
Yeah, you're into the civic politics from back east.
Yeah, that was pretty insane what happened there. So.
But yeah, I thought he had a good week. Like, honestly, there are some people out there who identify as conservative, who really are conservative and not as far right as the Trump type people.
Yeah.
And they're a bit populist too. Doug Ford is a bit of a populist.
Sure. Yeah.
He has done some pretty nasty things in that area, like cutting the green belt or something, getting rid of the green belt.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like an ALR, but not an ALR.
Yeah, yeah, and making deals with developers and that type of stuff. But exactly. I mean, but overall, I thought when it came down to this sort of almost a crisis around the U.S. threatening to put tariffs on Canadian goods, ever since that came out, I've been quite impressed with Doug Ford.
So it's hard to know where we're going, other than the fact that we will probably have by Christmas, people living in Chilliwack, we will have 2 BC Conservative MLAs. We will almost certainly have a BC Conservative. We'll have a Conservative MP. Probably Pierre Poilievre will be the Prime Minister. Donald Trump will be in the U.S. And it'll be a new Conservative period of time.
And the left needs to get their crap together.
Yeah,
they need to stop selecting these boring, old, mainly white dudes to be.
Who are you calling a white dude?
Well, Biden and Trudeau, and we need interesting perspectives. People with, like if I was gonna pick Carney, like I said, Carney impressed me. Yeah, he's an old white dude or a middle-aged white dude, but he impressed me with the way he approached that interview and some of his ideas. And like I said, he's framing himself as an outsider, which is what the Liberal Party needs to do. Because any current sitting MP that comes in, like I actually really like
Chrystia.
Yeah, Chrystia Freeland. Like I thought she would have been a heck of a leader, but Problem is she's too tied to Trudeau and all the decisions that were made under them that I don't think that someone like that can win an election. And I almost don't want her to go in there because I think she's too smart. I think she needs to sit this one out and then wait and see what happens and then rebuild that party, much like they did after the Paul Martin stuff.
I mean, the only thing about Freeland that's good is for the people like Bumper Stickers, you have the alliteration of fuck Freeland.
Well, that's true.
So,
yeah.
There's that.
Hey, what are they doing with those F. Trudeau flags?
I don't know. You had an idea, didn't you?
Yeah, I think they take out the DEAO and they put MP in there and then fly around F. Trump after he puts the tariffs on.
I don't think it's... Well,
if you truly care about your country, you're going to make it so it's F. Trump. I don't think the
people that put fuck Trudeau stickers on their pickup trucks
they should.
With their truck nuts...
If they care
about dislike Donald Trump, no matter what he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I doubt they will too.
Facts don't matter.
Yeah, you're right. Facts.
Objects in the mirror. Anyway.
All right, welcome back to Objects in the Mirror. And speaking of objects in the mirror, they're always closer than they appear. So now we're going to kind of boil things down to more of a local level. Mm-hmm. And, school board, we got a by-election coming up. Mm-hmm. And March 1st. And why are you wearing that shirt, by the way?
Well, because he's going to be president.
Are you sucking up? You're sucking up, aren't you?
Me and Zuckerberg, we're making sure that we're okay with him.
I never suck up. Anyway, let's talk about let's talk about school board. So there's a by-election happening because Heather Maws got elected as MLA, vacated her seat. You running?
Am I running? I was thinking of it. I wasn't really thinking of it. I always was jokingly thinking of it. I posted about it. I joked for a long time that I was going to run, and I was never serious because I'd be eaten alive by people who dislike me and have stuff to talk about my background or what have you. But I mean, I like the idea of it. I do like the idea of representing and people, and I have a lot of people who, when I said it as a joke, I had a remarkable number of people say, I'd support you. And some people who were like, people with some gravitas. Who said they would support me.
Yeah, Louis DeJager, a friend of mine.
I didn't want to mention his name.
He
told me directly.
I'll mention his name. He ran for the Liberals in the federal election in 2015. But he came to me and said, oh, I think that's great. And I'd vote for him. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure it was tongue-in-cheek, but whatever. Yes. I mean, because I didn't know. You didn't tell me anything. Yeah. I just saw your post. But
well, it all stemmed from during all the stuff that started in 2017 with Barry Neufeld and the posts about Soji, and then we've gone through years of this, and I can't even tell you how many column inches, how much ink has been spilled on Barry Neufeld and Soji and school board on topics that they should not be talking about, frankly.
Well, that's what I ran for. I ran in, right. I think it was 2018, and I was fairly new in town and didn't know a lot of people. But that was exactly why I ran too. I saw that and I was like, we can't let somebody like that be in the school board. But honestly, I'm not cut out for politics. I just I say what I want all the time, and you can't do that all the time in politics. You need to be able to sort of bite your tongue.
I'm not like that at all.
Well, see, that's why you shouldn't run either, maybe.
Yeah, no. So then, but to be honest, with the Chiller School Board, and we're not going to go into this too deep, my personal opinion, but the left on the Chiller School Board similarly just goes on and on about things that they shouldn't go on about, and they get sucked into the things that, the Daryl Ferguson, young earth creationist, and the sort of lefties on the board, they just talk about the stuff. And as a newspaper man, who I was for most of my, time in the city, I was the reporter, editor, we kind of like, there's a Modest Mouse song called Good News for People Who Love Bad News. When something bad happens, you're kind of like, it's a good story. Barry Neufeld opens his stupid yap. It's a good story. A lot of the controversy was made for good stories, but it just was not what they should have been talking about. In my history of covering school board as a reporter, it is staggeringly boring because they're involved with about 2% of the budget, of a $150 million budget. They're dealing with policy. They're dealing with their fiddling in the margins, right?
It seems like a lot of money to be spending. You know, we got 7 trustees that we're spending money on to make very, very little decisions, but we have this sort of theater that plays out, especially in Chilliwack.
That's a good way of putting it, theater, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I wrote a column once that just said, "Dear school board trustees, please make school board boring again." And the irony from that is that I get a very nasty email from Trustee Heather Moz and from Trustee Willow Richel about that. So it was interesting that they both were like disagreeing with me, and I was like, I'm just saying, like, let's go back to the top anyway.
So let's talk about the actual by-election that's coming up. What are your predictions? What do you like? We talked about how everything's moving right at a national and an international, and do you see that happening in this by-election at the school board at the local level? Let's face it, our entire city council, or a good portion of the city council, is conservative, always has been.
Yeah. I would argue that the conservatism at the Chilliwack City Council is more to do with like fiscal and traditional conservatism, like keep things how they were, and let's just make sure we don't do too much over here, and we do things cautiously, and we keep property tax, which is traditional conservatism. Some of what we've seen at the Chilliwack School Board between Barry Newfeld and Daryl Ferguson and even Heather, and then even a bit of Richard Prosey, although he's been kind of quiet. This is like closer to what we were talking about earlier, about this populist style of conservatism, this move towards just something beyond conservatism. The Chilliwack School Board has moved very left because of those people, because Barry's gone, Daryl's gone, Heather's now gone. But there's room for another one. Yeah,
so there's one spot open, and we know that Laurie Thronis has former MLA for the BC Liberals. He was thrown out of that party. He's declared. We know that Katie Bartel is declared. She's the DPAC president and has been for many years, and is well known in the community. I haven't heard any other names other than yours. But what do you think is going to happen here? Do you see Laurie having a cakewalk? Do you see Katie rallying the troops and getting the vote out?
I think between those two, I mean, I know obviously Jared's name came up because Jared Mumford was a former school board trustee who seemed like an obvious person. I thought right away, are you going to run? I chatted with him, not seriously or in depth, but I don't think he is. I don't know. It was considered. I'm not serious. Someone told me Daryl Ferguson was going to run again, but that doesn't make sense to me because I would have so much fun with that. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Laurie Thronis. But, so Laurie Thronis, of course, as people know, was the MLA, and he was a BC Liberal MLA, and he made a few false steps, and I called it the sort of the 3 strikes you're out with the BC Liberals. He mentioned various things that the party didn't like, and the end game for him and the BC Liberals was comparing, free contraception to something from fascist times. Like it was just terrible. So
eugenics. I think he was. Yeah, it was eugenics.
Yeah, is that what it was? Yeah, eugenics. So he got kicked out of the BC Liberals, and then of course he lost because he ran as an independent. So. But he would have fit in well with the current Conservatives. Yes. So, he'd fit in. He'd be a perfect BC Conservative candidate. And ironically, he was a BC Conservative candidate once. Yeah, and lost to BC Liberals. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, but he is. I actually over the years, all the time when he was an MLA, I actually really got along really well with Laurie. He's a very nice guy. He's very, very intelligent. He's very articulate. He's very thoughtful. We probably disagree on 95% of things politically and socially and all the rest of it, but he does have a constituency for sure in the conservative, religious right in Chilliwack, and so I would say he's got a really good chance. Katie has come out pretty strong and pretty campaign boom 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 with all her websites and her social media. And she's pretty high profile because of her DPAC. And she was she ran the Pride, I think Chilliwack Pride. I think it's going to be a cakewalk for Katie, in my opinion. Yeah. If they can bring
numbers out because it's a by-election, so your numbers are going to be low, right?
11% probably.
Yeah, but I really think that she's been preparing for this since she became the DPAC person. I also really respect her work on behalf of disabled people, and she has a lot of knowledge in that area, and she's a good advocate for LGBTQ. But she's also pretty level-headed and would be a good representative anyway, and it would be a good sort of training opportunity for her to run in the next election, or whoever wins, even if it's Lori. They get their feet wet as what does the Board of Education actually do? Yeah. In my opinion, not a heck of a lot, but whatever. It's an important role because we can't just leave it to the superintendent to make decisions. We need to have a representative of the people making the decisions in terms of public education.
My throwing myself out there with like making school board boring again, and vote Paul. I was really just a distraction and kind of annoyed certain people on the left because I wasn't suddenly jumping behind Katie.
Because you were going to split the vote.
Apparently.
Allegedly.
Somebody said I was going to split the vote as if someone was going to vote for me and like whatever. But
that's going to be the danger. That is like, that's when I ran in 2018.
Yeah, that happens though. It's true.
There was probably 12 of us we are all still friends today. Chris Braun and people like that. Jared, obviously, and a few others. And, we split the vote too much. Yes. And we shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But now that we know each other, we can have these conversations. And I think that's what's going on the right now. And I think that's why you're going to not see Daryl put his name forward because Lori's going to carry that, whatever you want to call it, mantle. Right. Call it what you want. But.
And why somebody's mother told me, you cannot run or you're going to split the vote, Paul. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do it. Anyway. So that's school board, and it could be Lori. I actually might disagree with you on that. I bet you Lori wins. We can bet a beer on that.
Let's do it. Let's put some money on it.
And then,
$20. Let's do $20.
$20.
Yeah, let's just do $20.
Shouldn't be gambling on air.
That's a 6-pack of Old Yale IPA. Let's just do that, okay? And
sure.
But I think Katie's.
I'm not going to cheer for it, but
I think Katie's going to get the vote out more so than Lori's going to get the vote out. So.
I don't know. You'd be surprised. The Conservatives, like when you give a school board, when you have a by-election, you have a very low turnout, and there's a demographic of the very social conservative, whatever, regular conservative right. Those people, you can judge them or stereotype them as being old folks, but they're reliable and they're a reliable vote. And Chuck Strahl knows that after all those years in power. Mark Strahl knows it now. I don't know. I think you're wrong there. I think we're on. This bet's on. You're on.
Okay. Well, are we? Or is it a paper ballot? And that's it. No electronic voting.
As far as I know.
Okay. Yeah, it's basically going to be who gets the vote out and who doesn't split the vote on their side.
Yes. Vote splitting is again. We're going to come back to the topic of conservatism here in a moment, but just vote splitting to me is always very interesting. I always have a cognitive dissonance about that because. I hate the idea of you can't run because you're gonna split the vote, which is what I was told when I was jokingly said I was going to run, and that actually makes me want to run because it's irritating to say that. Mm-hmm. Having said that, it is a real thing. Of course, it actually is a real thing.
In first past the post.
In our system, yeah. In our system, when too many conservative style people run for a certain thing, you have and vote splitting happens a lot of different ways. Like, I mean, let's be honest, Kelly Padden, she's great MLA. She was a great MLA. Mm-hmm. She made it in because of vote splitting between.
And so did Dan. And Dan did too, because we had a conservative and a BC Liberal running, and they both were excellent MLAs.
And speaking of MLAs who are conservative and conservatism coming back to Chilliwack, the BC Conservatives. The zombie party, I call them, that were dead, revitalized amazingly by John Rostad in slow motion. We've got Heather Maas, school board trustee. Heather Maas is the MLA for what is now called Chilliwack North. Mm-hmm. It was just Chilliwack. And Alia Warbus.
Alia.
What did I say?
Alia.
Okay.
Alia.
Alia Warbus, who is Stephen Point's, I don't need to point that out, but it's interesting because he used to be lieutenant governor Stephen Point's granddaughter, is the MLA for Chilliwack Cultus Lake.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by her, but I don't know a heck of a lot about her. But I stuff I've read about, filmmaker and stuff. And
yeah, she's filmmaker. She's an artist. She's very creative, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She's a good. The most I've ever seen about her, frankly, was at the intersection of Luckakuk and Vetter when there was a march right before the pandemic. People forget this even happened. I looked up the photos. It was February 2020. I believe, and it was the march for All Lives Matter, and she was part of that. Her Stephen was there too, but she had the microphone and she was there, and she was not just talking very powerfully and stuff like that, but she was like rapping, like played some music, and she was she's quite talented.
Yeah.
So the fact that she ran for the Conservatives at all just boggled a lot of minds.
And it boggled my mind as an Indigenous, as a Métis person. It boggled my mind. Not that all of us are the same politically, and I think she's even said that publicly. Like, don't lump us all in the same category. Yeah. But yeah, it kind of surprised me too. And I know that there's issues going on in that party already. We saw it with Eleanor Sturko, and it makes me wonder what's going on behind those closed doors. There were people that signed. Eleanor stood up for trans people. There was something that happened, and she made a statement that was supportive, and I forget, it was around the Vancouver School Board or city, somebody resigning, and it caused a bit of an uproar within that opposition party, the BC Conservatives, where they sent a letter to the leader, and then he had to take a position. But I noticed she was quite silent on a lot of that, and I wonder if they're going to even make it all the way through.
I think the thing with the BC Conservatives is they are basically a populist party, as I've discussed. They are not traditional conservatives. And the people that have signed on to be candidates, let alone the people who are voting for them, are one-issue people.
I don't think she is. I don't think Alia is.
Well, they might not all be one issue. Maybe one or two issue. And I think her reason is she was very, very, very opposed to the drug policies that were
right.
And so that's the kind of thing that got her. Someone like Heather Moss might be more a consistent BC Conservative. But someone like Alia, and there's other people in that party who are like, what? You're BC Conservative? They had like one issue that they were stuck on, whether it's trans or, Gwen O'Mahony. I
know that one was interesting. She was the drugs, and she claimed she left the NDP because of their position on the drugs as well as trans issues.
It was trans, yeah. And she was Gwen O'Mahony, if people remember, was like she was an MLA for Chilliwack for about 7 seconds after a by-election, and then until a re-election she lost. And
apparently she was recruited by John Martin, the former MLA.
She was recruited by John Martin. Yeah. John Martin, actually, I talk to John Martin frequently. He messages me and we laugh. We disagree on a lot of stuff, but he's another sort of a guy that I have great conversations with because he's...
Well, he gets it that it's a theater.
Yeah.
Him and I bonded over professional wrestling.
Yes.
And I always said that I always felt politics was really the same as professional wrestling. These people are playing characters.
It is kind of, yeah.
And even at the school board level, like, honestly,
I suppose
I see the people that are playing characters because I know who they are behind the scenes.
Right.
Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
And some I know better than others. And I see performance going on. I don't see the real person necessarily all the time. So
I think that's probably why you and I are just not cut out for...
Well, I like to perform, but I perform, in costume and at protests and things like that. So
hey, look at my shirt.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can keep a straight face at city council meetings or school board meetings.
Okay, so city council.
City council, yes, we were talking about that, and you were saying how it's a very conservative city council. I kind of disagree because it's not the same conservatism. It's real conservatism, I think. But,
yeah, you're probably right.
But having said that. So we've talked about every level of government, including municipal, but only the school board part of municipal, because that is municipal. But the city council, but that's not this year or last year. The next city council meeting is next city council election, municipal election in BC is 2026, fall 2026. They switched to it. They went from 3 years a while back, which confused me, to a 4-year terms. So it was 18, 2022, and now 2026. So it'll be a year and a half, and then we will have a new mayor, I believe, because I'm
He said he wasn't going to run last time, and
Bet
he
you-
changed his mind.
But I'm pretty sure from insider conversations he's not going to run, and I know who is going to run, and they are going to probably win. So we'll see. But we'll see.
Yeah,
You
it's a
never
long
know.
ways off.
It's a
and
long
lot
ways
can
off.
happen.
Yeah, a lot changes in that time
The
frame.
thing that bothers me about city council when I watch the meetings, and I don't follow it as closely as I used to, I kind of disengaged a bit. But the thing that I always notice is how certain councillors work in the realty business or they're builders or
Yes.
whatever, and they know who they are, Chris Clute and Westring,
Jeff.
and they make these decisions and they get up and leave because they're in a conflict of interest, and they walk out this door by the mayor. They quickly all raise their hands to approve whatever they're going to approve. That's obviously, beneficial to whoever their clients or whoever. And then they come walking back in. It's like, okay, do you really expect us to believe that you knew nothing about
no one
that?
even went to get them.
And they're not super controversial decisions.
No.
I mean, honestly, by
They just
and
can't
large,
vote on them.
by and large, I feel like city council does a pretty decent job.
I think so. In this city, and all the stuff I've seen in other municipalities, and all my years of covering city council, I always wanted to. I joked about being a reporter, and maybe you want controversy. Well, they actually do a pretty good job. We have the lowest property taxes of most municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's pretty responsible. It's always you may not want to credit the city council for that. We've always had very good management, whether it was Peter Monteith and now I believe it's Chris Crossman. I'm not sure, but they always were very good city managers, and that's actually critical.
And they get rewarded with jobs at SEPCO.
Yeah, well, SEPCO's a whole other conversation we'll talk about another time.
Well, and again, I don't disagree with
Separating.
SEPCO. It's the way most cities do business. I went to a conference in Victoria last week about housing, and there was a woman from Nanaimo there, and they do the very similar thing in Nanaimo. Leonard Krog's the mayor there. And so they have these corporations, and they're there for a specific reason, and it works very well for Chilliwack. It doesn't work great for sharing of information, though.
No, I know, and it's kind of keeps that.
So anyway, that was.
So that's City Hall. That's School Board, City Hall. We're going to come back to the fact that we are still talking about this big shift to conservatism, whatever that looks like in 2025. We were going to have President Donald Trump momentarily, imminently. I believe there's almost no chance we're going to have anybody but Polyev in October. But, in this day and age, gosh, everything changes so dramatically. So who knows what can happen. But
that view from 30,000 feet that you talked about.
Yeah, like I was talking about this with you, and I used to talk about this all the time with my reporters when I was the editor. In that when you're doing journalism at a community newspaper level, I used to always say, if you can't say Chilliwack in the story, it's not a story for us. And people would call me and say, oh my gosh, this terrible thing happened in Mission. I'm like, well, if the entire city of Mission burned down, it wouldn't be a story for us. We'd find a way to localize that. But my point always is in community newspaper journalism and national journalism is you can make any local story can be a big issue. It's easy to do national journalism. But anything national or regional or international can be localized. If you see things from, again, 30,000 feet from up above, you can bring them down and, the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Right?
They're always closer than they appear, and we've both experienced it. So
exactly.
And that's why we call this Objects in the Mirror.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming, and thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again in the near future. And guess what? What do we say? See you later. This is Objects in the Mirror, the PeterPaul Podcast.
Thanks for listening.